Hello everyone. Today our topic is Islamic perspective on crime and punishment. So let's dissect this topic in complete depth. In Islam, the realms of God and Caesar are one. Instead of having separate jurisdictions as allowed by Christ, here, by providing a complete system of social legislation based on divine sanctions, Islam comes much closer to Judaism than to Christianity. Consequently, Islam is a divine law based on four sources. Quran, which is the word of God. Supplementary to it is Hadith, which are the traditions of the Prophet, peace be upon him. The records of his actions and sayings from which Muslims must derive help and inspiration in arriving at legal decisions. If there is nothing either in the Quran or in the Hadith to answer any particular legal question, Muslims have to follow dictates of a secular reason in accordance with the certain definite principles. Thus, Islamic law is derived from four sources: the Quran, the Sunnah, which is traditions of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Then third one is Ijma, which is the consensus of opinion among the learned Muslim jurists. Fourth one is Qiyas, which is analogy or reasoning. Acha ji, definitions of crime and their categories in Islamic criminal law. The word in Arabic used for crime is jarima, which means trespass, overleap, the bounds of, and also means to break or violate. So in Quran, it is used in the meaning of sin, zanb. Because overleaping or trespassing the bounds made by the God is a crime and committing crime is a sin. Therefore, those who commit crimes are sinful. Let's move on. Muslim jurists and legalists have defined it as act of going against or beyond the provisions of law, whether the commands or prohibitions, which is, in other words, crossing the bounds made by God. As such, certain actions which have been forbidden, sanctioned by punishment in Islamic law are considered crimes and hence considered crimes against religion. In Islamic law, crimes are divided into two major groups. Crimes for which had punishments are given, such as unlawful intercourse, zina, its counterpart, false accusation of unlawful intercourse, qadhaf, drinking wine, फिर theft है, highway robbery है, Crimes such as homicide, bodily harm या damage to property, crimes of this kind are called jinayat, literally offenses, or the punishment for such crimes are qisas, retaliation, kafara, उसके बाद दिया, blood money, or tazir. The major differences between the two groups of crimes is that the punishments had punishment ordained against the first group are considered the rights of the God, for which there is no pardon and no concession, while the punishments prescribed against the second group are called the right of a man, and therefore they can be reduced or totally ruled out and pardoned if victim, or in case of murder, his next of kin agrees to do so. Muslim jurists have differed on the question whether punishment qisas, diya, tazir are also considered under the had punishment. The majority of the jurists have expressed their opinion that qisas, although ordained by God, does not come under had, because it is the right of the human and is not right of the God, while tazir is neither sanctioned by God or nor is it the right of God. Crimes under had punishment must fulfill two conditions. First is the invasion of the right of the God, and secondly that the punishment would have been sanctioned by Quran and Sunnah. The crimes for which punishment of qisas applies fulfill one condition, while tazir fulfills none. Crimes for which had punishments are given. In Quran, the word had is always used in the plural hudud. It means the limits laid down by God, that is the provisions of the law, whether commands or prohibitions. In Muslim criminal law, had means an unalterable punishment prescribed by divine law, which is considered the right of God. The crimes for which had punishments apply are considered as crimes against religion, and because the person who commits such crimes violates the rules of God and transgresses the bounds made by Him. The had is a right or claim of Allah, and therefore no pardon or amicable settlement is possible. These crimes against religion are zina, which is fornication, that is between the person who are not in state of legal matrimony. The had for this crime is stoning to death for the married, 100 lashes for the unmarried, and 50 for slaves. The had punishment for the unmarried who commits the crime of unlawful intercourse is mentioned in the Quran, while the punishment for the married guilty of this crime is sanctioned by Sunnah. Had will not be applicable to the insane and to the minors. A full investigation is also condition. If required number 4 witnesses is incomplete, the had will not be implemented. However, in the absence of 4 witnesses, confession of an accused is deemed conclusive evidence. अच्छा जी, कदफ क्या होता है? Slander in a special sense. If anyone accuses a respectable person of incontinence without being able to bring 4 persons to support him, he is liable by law a definite punishment, had of 80 lashes for kadaf. अच्छा जी, al-sarika, which is theft. The Quran says, as to the thief, male or female, cut off his or her hands, a punishment by the way of example from God for their crime. And God is exalted in power. The canon law jurists are not unanimous as to the value of the property stolen, which could involve the penalty of cutting off the hand. The majority hold that the petty thefts are exempt from these punishments. Acha ji, the general opinion is that only one hand should be cut off for the first theft, on the principle that if thy hand or thy foot offend thee, cut them off and cast them from thee. Apparently, in the age of Jesus, thieves were crucified. It should be mentioned in this connection that the second caliph Umar suspended this punishment during the years of famine. अच्छा जी, al-haraba, highway robbery. Many crimes including treason against the state may come under al-haraba. Punishment of this crime is execution, crucifixion, or cutting off the hands and feet from the opposite sides of or exile from the land. Al-murtad, one who turns back especially from Islam, an apostate. Apostasy is called rida. It may be committed verbally by denying principle of belief or by an action. For example, treating a copy of Quran with disrespect. In the Quran, the apostate is threatened with punishment in the next word only. The wrath of God will fall upon him. The death penalty of al-murtad came in tradition. Slay him, he who changes his religion. Shurab al-khamar, drinking wine. Hadith has many utterances against this theme. Wine is the key of all evil. Curse is he who drinks, buys or sells wines or causes others to drink it. As to the punishment of him who drinks wine, Hadith tell us that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his successor Abu Bakr were to inflict 40 blows by means of palm branches or sandals. Under Umar's caliphate, it was 80 lashes for the first time and 80 in the second time, and death penalty in the third. Acceptance of evidence. Islamic law requires the following conditions to be fulfilled for the acceptance of evidence in order to avoid any sort of injustice by punishing an innocent as a result of false accusations. Number 1, that the number of the witnesses must not be less than 4. Number 2, that all the witnesses must be men, particularly in the crime of zina. In other cases where women evidence is acceptable, 2 women would be counted equal to 1 man. Acha ji. Third, that the witnesses must have seen incident of crimes by himself or otherwise the evidence would not be accepted. Fourth है जी, that the witnesses must be Muslim, witnesses must be just, pious and they themselves must not be corrupt. The witnesses must not have seen any sort of enmity or malice against the accused. Confession. In cases of confession, Islam lays down certain conditions. The person, man or woman, confessing must be adult. Number two, not confess as a result of any force. Number three, the confession must be uttered 4 times. Number four, that the confession must be in court before a jury. It is also conditioned that the punishment be given openly and publicly. अच्छा जी, the moot question is, can any proof positive be established of the crime of zina? The answer, in all fairness, is emphatic no. Adultery is a nerve wracking vice, not like hypocrisy or gluttony. It cannot be practiced in public. It is next to impossible to prove such a crime. The eyewitness of 4 just believers is required if married person is to be killed for adultery. As for confession, no one will confess such a crime to be stoned for it. For the hand to be cut off, 2 believers must testify, and the crime must fall outside the 11 separate restrictions, one of which is if the object is worth than 17 grams or if the theft took place within the family, etc. Al Haraba can be exploited politically since its definitions cover a wide areas of crime. So this was our lecture for today. If you like the content, subscribe our channel, like the video, share the video. Jazakallah and Allah Hafiz.